Okay, so for the first part, we are determining if the clinicians are in or out of the scope of practice and or competence. The first one says an LPCC with 3 years of practice after licensing had worked mainly with the LGBT population and now started working with a trans client. I would say yes,
Yeah.
both practice and competence.
Uh-huh. I agree. It's pretty clear.
Two, you have been working at a hospital for 15 years as a LMFT in cases of domestic violence. Now you're seeing a battered woman, Kathy, at a free clinic as part of your pro bono work. The client does not have medical insurance, so you offer to get them some free samples of Prozac from the hospital. You know from extensive experience that 20 to 30 milligrams of Prozac would help your client move on with their life. Moreover, you want to help because you know that the medical system in the US sucks.
I sympathize, but this is not within this person's scope of practice
Yeah,
or competence.
agreed. Um, the competence feels like slightly grayish area, but also like just out of practice, like clear no. But yeah, also feel like the therapist clearly wants to be an advocate and help like slice through some of the bureaucratic medical system. But yeah, unethical to steal Prozac to give to somebody without having a license to do so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Number three, during the aftermath of the wildfires in California and more recently the flooding in Northern California, a local clinician around the Northern Bay Area who does not have specific training in dealing with PTSD was/is treating survivors and neighbors in the affected area. Is this clinician in or out of the scope of practice and or scope of competence?
That's interesting. I mean, that's within, it doesn't say what kind of clinician, but I'm assuming this is also LMFT or LPCC. So that is in the scope of practice, but it is not in this person's scope of competence.
Yeah,
I think.
I agree. Yeah, they could get some training on that, but it sounds
Mhm.
like they're in that area. The whole area has been impacted by these issues. They're licensed. Someone needs to be helpful
Mhm.
so they can
Yeah.
go get training and supervision. And
Yeah. Yeah. Like something they could do, but could use some support.
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
How do you want to tackle number two?
Um, I don't know. Do you want to like alternate
Sure.
reading them
Yeah.
or summarizing? I don't know.
Yeah, either or. It's cool.
Okay, so a therapist in private practice received a referral of a middle school girl. According to the referral source, this girl is struggling with low self-esteem, social anxiety, low academic performance. The therapist has worked with elementary and high school kids for several years, but doesn't have experience with middle schoolers. Um, so the therapist feels confident, but we are assuming that the therapist is not competent.
Mm.
So what do we think they should do?
I think it like consultation, right? Like being like, hey, I've worked with older kids and younger kids, these issues that this middle school girl is dealing with, like I feel comfortable working with, but that age range, I don't know what I'm missing. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I think consultation probably makes sense to me.
That was my thinking too, especially like if you've worked with the last grade in elementary school and the first grade in high school, like you're not people go through things at different times. Like you've probably dealt with a lot of the issues that come up in middle school. So yeah, consultation makes sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how you're also kind of just saying like things don't always have to happen in like a linear age chronology. So cool. Number two, if a clinician is racist against African Americans, what should they do if given an African American client at the community clinic where they work? They could refer client to another psychologist saying they're not competent to work with African Americans because they do not know enough about their culture. Although this may be true, the true reason for referral is racism. What do you think is the first right action?
Yeah, this one's hard. I have like thoughts that are not good answers. I definitely think referral should happen. I think additional things should also happen.
Mm,
Um, but I think referral should be the first thing. Like, I don't think that this clinician should see this client.
mm,
So I definitely think, yeah, like refer them, don't work with them. And then I think I would also seek out like training and supervision. And for me, like if I were this person's supervisor, I would point out if they haven't realized already, like, I don't know if this is going on, like there's probably other stuff going on. And so like what else is coming out with your other clients? And um like it seems really unlikely to me that this clinician is racist against African Americans and has like no other biases that are going to cause harm to other clients.
mm, mhm,
Um, but yeah, also like a lot of training and then like a lot of supervision before they begin working with any African American clients.
mm. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I have a lot of thoughts and also just like more questions too.
Mhm.
Like, is this clinician like being covertly or overtly like anti-Black? Like, what are they saying? Is this like discomfort and like human
Mhm.
difference in experience and like, the way that in the white supremacist imperialist, hellhole that we're in of like socialized racism, like is there like what trainings, yeah, like are available to deconstruct that, but also just like I think like last week when we were talking about like values and not imposing um them, but then this week kind of like feeling like there is more flexibility with like the word interfering, like if your beliefs are interfering with your ability to like see inherent dignity in a client because of your like belief system, that is going to cause more harm. So yeah, I think I'm like with all of these, I always like just want to know like more context, like,
Mhm.
but yeah, referring out um because it sounds like that would interfere with this clinician's ability to hold healing space.
Mhm.
um, and yeah, I think trainings and supervision and like working on those biases, then like systemically reinforced positions feels important. So yeah, I mean, if a clinician is like explicitly racist, it would be harmful to have them, you know, beginning working with someone if it's like a trial error to see if that can budge. I feel like I may have like talked in circles, but I'm just like I'm curious, you know, since so much of like from my perception and understanding of like the US empire and being like inherently rooted in racism, like there's so much deconstructing that already has to happen. And yeah, the levels of like the way that that racism is, yeah, coming out. But yeah, if there it says racist, yeah, I think refer out probably the
Mhm.
first step.
Yeah.
many other steps.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah. And I'm appreciating you reading it with more like possible situations in mind than how I was reading it. And I think, yeah, I read this very much as like this clinician is sort of like intentionally closed
Yeah.
uh, to a population. And yeah, and you're right. Like it could also be someone, I don't know, like who's like I'm imagining could be someone with like a white clinician with white guilt who's like, ah, I'm unqualified to do this, and like, I don't know. And that would also interfere, but interfere in a way that is different from like kind of how I was imagining it.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So just appreciating like there exists a lot more
Mhm. Yeah, I
possible.
think it is written kind of like my first interpretation was kind of along the same lines as yours, but yeah. Number 3.
Okay. A clinician in private practice spent their early career working primarily with adults with severe and persistent mental illness. And then they are shifting to child custody cases, which could potentially be working, or I guess we know that's outside of her area of competence. So, this clinician would need to get training and supervision and consultation prior to engaging in those activities. What should the clinician do first?
My like right now in this moment instinct would be maybe consultation with somebody that like works in like child custody to be like, okay, hey, here's what I know how to work with. I know I need training. Would you point me in a direction that would like make sense based off of my experience and knowing like, if you're working with severe mental illnesses, there's probably a solid understanding of like ACEs and adverse childhood experiences. So there's going to be some overlap, but like somebody who works in that field, like maybe in the more case management side of things, I would assume, um, would probably have a better pulse on like a good training to get started with. So
Mhm.
that's my knee jerk in the moment thought.
Yeah, I like that. I think I was thinking training. Um, and I was also kind of confused because I was like, I feel like the answer is always training first when something is out of like really out of your scope. But I actually, now that you say that, I'm like, yes, I agree. Because especially if it's not the field that you've been in, like you might not know what trainings exist and like what trainings exist also that are gonna, yeah, not be teaching like primarily stuff that you do know and be really focused on the parts that you're missing. So I think that makes sense, like to, yeah, talk to an expert in the field.
Hmm, cool. Yeah, I'm just like imagining myself like if I was doing that sort of pivot, like I would probably feel overwhelmed at the like possibilities of like what training to get started with. So, I mean, I'm also assuming like, you're shifting, so you've probably been hired. So you're also probably in those waters now. So I don't know, maybe the training that you would want to do would be more obvious, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know because it says the clinician has been in private practice.
Hmm.
So, like, it's possible this is just a vision.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically figure out what sort of training would be most helpful first. And
Mhm.
if that is not obvious, probably talk to somebody that would be able to steer you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there anything? Oh, there's number
There's
4.
one more.
Um, a clinician who works with substance abuse, including alcoholism, is treating a homeless person with a heroin addiction. This clinician has worked with different populations, adolescents, adults, different races, classes, and different gender and sexualities, different religions, but has never worked with the unhoused population. What should they do? Consultation, refer out, training, supervision.
Um, I'm thinking like consultation, maybe supervision. Um, and I think that gets at that like a little bit of confusion over what the distinction is between those. Um, yeah, like I could see training eventually if this is a population they want to work with more intentionally, but yeah, I think just support from someone who's worked more with this population.
Hmm.
Your sounds like you had a different thought.
I think that I'm really not sure. I'm just like kind of thinking through this one, because it feels, like stakes are highest with this client, like kind of um red alert and like the substance of choice, or maybe not even choice, but that is accessible to someone who doesn't have access to like a roof over their head,
Mhm.
like surviving in that condition. Like it says like they're familiar with different classes, so they've probably worked, I'm assuming, with, people that are in poverty. So there might
Mhm.
be some familiarity, but like not having a home is, you know, sort of the lowest of having physical needs met. Um, and I know, I haven't taken the addictions class yet, so I don't know that much, but um, where there might be some familiarity with, withdrawal, is this clinician as familiar with like heroin? And
Mhm.
yeah, I guess I'm not really sure. Like it feels like definitely training is needed. But like also like some one-on-one sort of like support and like knowing how to best serve this client, to like integrate the training. But I don't know. I get right now my brain is just like consultation first. Like
Mhm.
I don't know if that's true or good, but like even just, hey, like I haven't worked with this situation before. What do I need to know? Um, yeah, I
Yeah.
guess so far through this reading and this exercise, I'm like very pro consultation.
Yeah, yeah, there's something about like orienting to this like new field via like someone who knows it. Um, yeah, and I think my I don't know, something I'm sort of processing also with training is like the example of the person who's thinking about switching fields, like to work going from I forget what to child custody cases. Um, it's a plan. There's not like a person who needs help right now sitting there. So like it feels like, okay, there's time for training.
Mm,
Whereas I think something that's happening for me here is I'm like, yeah, it doesn't feel like there's time for training, at least not as the first
mm,
step. I guess unless you refer out. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It feels, you're right, like more context would help, but I think my instinct is like this person, this clinician has some relevant knowledge and experience. And so maybe, and like this person has showed up. And so maybe they can help. And like, yeah, just thinking about working with that if that's a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think they have some level of competence. So yeah, maybe consultation.
Mhm.
Final
That's
answer.
favorite step one.
All right. Do we feel complete?
I think so.